I am Susan Altman. I'm on the board of Arts Medford, which is an organization which is one town over from Arlington, where Janet is from. And we generally have a school bus that we converted to a sort of art storage and studio that we call the Medford Arts Resource Vehicle, known as MARV. And we have been driving him around to various events. But last year we couldn't do that anymore. So we set up a virtual series instead, and we're calling it Arts After Dark. It's not dark. I just feel I have to point that out. But at any rate, it was dark when we planned this in March of last year. So anyway, we're delighted to have the Arlington Center for the Arts be co-hosting this session and a couple more in June and July with us. And we are going to actually be having at least one of those, both on Zoom and in person at the same time. So that'll be a big adventure for us, and we don't really expect it to go without technical difficulties, but we want to get started while we can. So that's going to happen on the 24th of June. And so keep your fingers crossed. It's a guitar duo, Dan Hollabaugh and Bill Morris from Arlington and North Reading. And they're amazing musicians and they're funny people. So that should be a great event as well. So we are supported, I have to say this part before I forget, by the Medford Arts Council, a local commission that is supported by the Massachusetts Cultural Council and the City of Medford. And we are also supported by Arts Alive Medford Foundation, Tufts Community Grants, the Massachusetts Cultural Council, and generous individuals. We also would like to acknowledge that Medford is part of the ancestral and traditional homeland of the Pawtucket, Wampanoag, and Massachusetts peoples. The Mystic River is a modified form of the Algonquin name Missitook, which means Great Tidal River. This acknowledgement offers recognition and respect to the original caretakers of this land and their descendants today, especially since the indigenous history of our region has been largely erased for the last 400 years. And I would like to introduce, but she is not here yet, Pam Shanley, who is the director of the Arlington Center for the Arts, but she was instrumental in getting Janet to join us tonight, and we're forever grateful for that. The way this is gonna work is that Janet's gonna do talk, and you can write any questions that you have into the chat window. And then when she's finished with the main part of her presentation, I will ask questions if I see them in the chat, and you can chime in with any questions that you have that you think of during the conversation or at the end. We expect this to probably go until maybe not quite 8 or so. If it goes longer and you want to hang out a little longer, that's fine, but we're going to aim for no more than an hour, just because we know people have busy lives and Zoom is not the desired way to spend most of our time anymore. So anyway, I would like to introduce Janet. I'm going to make you a co-host, Janet, so that you can share your screen whenever you are ready to do so.
Okay.
There you go.
Should I do it now?
Whenever you like.
Let's see if I can. Now, is anyone seeing the Zoom box or just my screen?
Just your screen and the pictures of us on the side, depending on how we have it set up. So it's looking good. You're good.
All right, so I'm on. Well, thank you all. And I recognize most of you. And maybe for about 30 minutes, I'm going to take you through 40 years of photography. And I will try not to go so fast as those years went. But anyway, interesting. Hold on a minute. There we go. in those years, I've done a lot of different kinds of photography. I started out nature and landscape, but I'm going to show you the other things I've done: still life, abstract, and fine art photography. Before I show you my work, I'd like to show you some of the work of people that have influenced me. You'll probably be familiar with many of these people. Imogen Cunningham had amazing flowers. Edward Weston, amazing still life. We all know Ansel Adams. I liked these two photos because one of them is classic large landscape, but the other is close up and very much like a still life. The abstract work that I really liked had to do with shapes and shadows and shapes of light and also texture. Of course, there's Elliott Porter, and I loved his tree series. He, like Ansel Adams, wandered around with a very large format camera. So in our world of 35mm cameras, we were not able to get the kind of detail that he did in these pictures. David Munch is another photographer. I never took a class with him, but I was aware that he had this philosophy about photographing, where he would photograph something in the distance and then something in the foreground, and then he would fill it in with a composition of line and color and form. I was lucky enough to be in a workshop with Art Wolfe in Maine, sponsored by the Audubon Society. And this was quite a few years ago, but he has, I don't know if there's any place on earth he hasn't photographed. And he's done amazing photographs of landscapes and animals. And like I said, I'm not sure there's anything left that he hasn't photographed, but I think the quote that I got from him, to never stop looking, no matter where you are, everywhere there are good photographs. And I find that when I go out without my camera, my brain is thinking, I wish I had my camera, but I'm seeing photographs even though I can't take the pictures. So in 1980, my father gave me my first 35mm camera. It was a Nikkormat with a 50mm lens. And this was the beginning of my journey into nature photography. It began with a week-long, I belonged to the Appalachian Mountain Club, and they were offering a week-long nature photography workshop in the White Mountains in October. So I carried more than 25 pounds of camera gear, clothes, a tripod, on a 3.5-mile hike into a hut. And there were maybe 12 of us, I think, on the workshop. And I began learning about exposure, aperture, shutter speed, depth of field, and composition. What I also learned is that it's really cold in the White Mountains in October. My water bottle froze. With nature and landscape photography, there was no Zoom, there was no internet, there were no personal computers. So I got a subscription to Outdoor Photographer. And in the back of Outdoor Photographer and most of the photography magazines, there were ads for workshops. So this introduced me to a world of workshops in other places. And over the years, I traveled to mostly one-week workshops in California, Wyoming, New Mexico, Washington, Maine, and Vermont. Now, at the time, I was photographing in color and mostly either with film or slide formats. So in order to be able to show you these pictures, the slide pictures had to be digitized. So I've done that on some of them, but not that many. Some of you might recognize the Albuquerque Hot Air Balloon Festival. Yosemite. I'm not sure which workshop, these are corn lilies. And what I remember about this picture is that these were on the side of the parking lot when we all got out of the van. And often, I don't know if you've ever been on a photography workshop, a lot of times photographers never make it more than 10 feet away from the van because you see something interesting to photograph. And that was the case of this. This is Maine and Vermont. This is Country Road in Vermont. I tried to find this road again and never could. And I think because in the years since I took this picture, I think they built things on this road. And this is a field in Maine. So I was doing color photography. And then in 1983, I enrolled in a year-long class in black and white photography and darkroom work at the Harvard Extension School with Christopher James. And I was working full time. And so my final project was still life photography. I didn't have a lot of time to run around and try and do photographs outside. So I basically found things in my kitchen. These eggs had come just out of the refrigerator, and you can still see some of the sweat on them from the condensation. I was lucky in the house that I was living in had a great window in the pantry of the kitchen. So I would put things in the light on the kitchen counter and just photograph them. And this was my shirt. After I photographed this shirt, I'm not able to wear it anymore because it's the wrong size, but I still have it. So when I took Christopher's class, he looked at my still life photography and he said, "You really need to take a workshop with Olivia Parker." And I didn't know who she was. She was offering the class at the Maine Photographic Workshops that next summer. So I bought 2 of her books and discovered that she had an amazing way to make ordinary things look extraordinary. It never occurred to me to photograph a pea pod or eggshells, or just a box. And so I fell in love with her photography, and I was really excited to take her class. So this was my still life workshop with Olivia Parker. I was staying in a beautiful Victorian house in Maine. And the thing was, it was no kitchen and no kitchen counter. So I looked around the room and I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I have to shoot 2 rolls of film every day, and we would have to come to class and they would develop our slides overnight, and then we would show them during the day and have critiques. So something made me go out and buy clothespins and a black cloth and apples. I remember buying apples. And so I had worked on these clothespins for probably the better part of an afternoon, and I had nothing. I just didn't like what I was getting. And I looked out the window and I saw that there were these flowers in the garden. So this was an aha moment where I went out and picked 5 flowers, put them in the clothespins, and just took this photo. And during that workshop, I also went down the road. We were in Rockport, Maine, and Camden was next door to Rockport. And I don't remember what route I was on, but there was Ike's Antiques. And I thought, well, there's got to be, everything in Ike's Antiques is a still life photograph if I can just figure out what it is. So I wandered around for a while and I saw doorknobs and I saw old tools and hammers and all sorts of things. But then I went down in the basement and I saw this colander. It actually is a purple colander and it only has 2 feet. So I walked around with that, and then this light was coming in through the one window in the basement. I found a piano stool, which is what's underneath it. And I may have noticed that the floor had an interesting tile, but anyway, I played around with the light and the piano stool and the colander. And I worked with it for so long, I bought the colander, and one of these days it's going to show up again in another photograph. It's in the attic right now. And the apples made it into a photo too. I put them in the window and I thought, well, I noticed there was a old mirror on the wall. So I took the mirror off the wall and I actually photographed the apples in the window through the mirror. So that's why it has that kind of dreamy effect. So after that workshop, I continued to do still life. I did nature still life and all of that, but here are some more of the still life photographs that I've taken since then. When I started playing with Photoshop, I had taken this picture of one pair and I thought, well, not very interesting, but this is a result of things I did in Photoshop that I could never repeat because I'm not sure what I did. But anyway, it was a variation on a pair. I still have my marbles from when I was a kid. So there was more film cameras until 2006. And then I began using digital cameras. I resisted it because I really liked how I understood film cameras. And when digital came, it was a whole new world. My first digital camera took photos of 3.3 megapixels. And for those of you that know photography, nothing, I mean, now we do 15, 30 megapixels. It's a very small photo compared to what we do today. But at the time, it was considered quite good. The other thing about digital photography, when you take photographs with film, we were a little more careful. We were more thoughtful. The film cost money, the processing cost money, and making prints cost money. So I think that with film photography, you really spent a little more time thinking about what you were photographing. With digital, you can take a lot of really bad photographs quickly. So you have to really think about what you're taking pictures of and try and slow down, I think, to take really well-composed pictures. So with all this camera and technology changes, I continued doing nature, landscape, still life. I took more classes. And I was also photographing animals, critters, and boats. So here's a critter series. I went to local farms. I still do this. I love photographing anything that runs away, or hopefully it doesn't. And I like county fairs where you can find pigs and goats and cows. And for people that live up here, these were at Codman Farm in Lincoln. I call this a scapegoat. This is a chicken from Right Lock Farm. And I also got very interested in photographing chicken feathers. Not so easy because chickens don't stand still very much. I found some turtles down at the Audubon Center in Wellfleet. And I just lucked into racing pigs at two fairs. One of them, the first one was the Topsfield Fair in Massachusetts. And the other one, I want to say I was in Vermont, but I can't remember where I was. According to the people that have racing pigs, they claim that the pigs get Oreo cookies when they finish the race. I don't know if that's true. So I've always liked photographing boats. When I spent time in Maine at the workshops, I would take time and photograph the boats. Excuse me. And also I traveled to Maine a lot in the summer for a week here and there because I have friends there. There's just something about the shape of these little boats. But then all of that changed. I still photograph small boats, but it all changed when it was a cold day in March. And I was walking on the beach at Plum Island with some friends. And I saw this little rowboat and it was turned upside down in the sand. And the paint, I noticed the paint colors. And instead of just photographing the boat, I photographed the paint. Excuse me. And this started a whole new series of me photographing the details on old boats. And it was the beginning of something I call the Boatyard series. So I travel to boat yards in New England, and I'm always looking for old boats like this one, boats that look like they've seen better days and are getting a new paint job. And I try to find them before they get to be new again. And I'm always hoping to find images like these. I took this photograph at a boat in Gloucester in dry dock, and I actually saw it. It was still in dry dock 2 years later, but most of the, all of the pink and black paint had fallen off, and all I saw were some traces of blue on the side of the boat. Now, these are very small parts of big boats. So I've been doing the boats for a long time, but then, and continue to, but in 2014, I retired from my day job. And then in 2015, I participated in a class at the Griffin Museum of Photography. And it's a course that's designed to help photographers build portfolios. And up until that point, I mean, a lot of the things that you see that I've grouped together were over the course of many years. And this was a class that was really focused at helping you build a portfolio within 12 to 16 weeks. And what came out of that for me was this group of photos I call paper, sticks, and stones. For years, I had been collecting stones. I loved smooth stones, stones with lines, strange stones, square stones. I had boxes and baskets of stones in my house, but I had never figured out how I wanted to photograph them. So I got the idea that I would do something with the stones, but I didn't have an idea until I went out. I remember it was in March, and I started picking up sticks around our yard. And then all of a sudden I had this idea that I could do something with the sticks and the stones. And that happens to be our cat Scout, who was not so helpful, but he was trying to help me with my arrangements. So I had all these sticks and all these stones, and here's what happened. So that was, and I still plan to do more. I hope to add to that portfolio. So then a couple of years later, I decided the class was really a good experience for me. And I thought, well, I'll take another class. And I had no idea at that point of what I'd want to do. But one day I was sitting in my office and I noticed the light that was coming into one window. And I thought, well, maybe I can do something with that light. If I haven't mentioned it, all of the work that I do is with natural light. I don't have any studio lighting. So I remembered I had these scraps of paper because I saved too many things, a lot of things. And so I started playing with the scraps of paper in that light that came in the window. And the window light was only available from about 8:30 in the morning to about 11:30. And then as the sun moved, obviously the light changed. So this is early light. So that brings us to close to the pandemic. And when the pandemic hit, I've always enjoyed photographing the natural world, and that's what I ended up doing, but that's not what I thought I was going to be doing. In March, when everything shut down, I thought, oh, I'm going to have all this time. I'm going to do all this still life photography. I'll do more sticks and stones. I'll do more paper and more early light. And instead, I found myself outdoors. And when I walked in both familiar and new places, I was very surprised and excited by the things I found. So as you all know, nature and light do something different every day. So I went out to see what it was doing. The sunset is a picture at the Arlington Reservoir. And I've walked around the reservoir a gazillion times, but I've never taken a picture of it. And I got lucky with the light, as most photographers are lucky with the light. The snow picture is just in my backyard. And the picture of the dock with the reflections is at Broadmoor Sanctuary, which is an Audubon sanctuary we had never been to. The ice on the branches was at Fresh Pond. And the day before I had taken a walk there, it was, I think, in March, and I saw these ice formations, but I didn't have a camera with me. So the next day I went back because I was really afraid they would all melt. And these formations were everywhere. It was like little ice doilies hanging out on all of the branches as the pond had thawed. I also spent a lot of time looking at the sky. So I took a lot of photos of trees in the sky and sometimes gardens. And then different kinds of landscapes. And I don't know if it was the isolation, but I started seeing faces everywhere. Faces and things I had walked past bunches of times. These two rocks are, I walk on a road where they exist and I'd never seen faces in them. So one of my friends and I used to go on walks separately and then send each other the faces we saw in the trees and in the rocks. And who knew there were swans in Arlington? The reservoir had, at different times, had up to 10 or 11 swans there. And as I was walking around it very often, I got to see them. But the biggest surprise were the Swan Family at a little pond in Lexington. And I saw this Swan Family. They had 8 babies, I can't remember. But anyway, I watched them grow up and now they're back and they have babies again on the swan, on the pond. And I'm not really a bird photographer, but when you're outdoors and you stand still, you actually get to see a lot more. So a lot of times I would just be somewhere and then get lucky with a frog or a bird. And then there were always my cats. As you know, I've probably photographed them a zillion times. So when I was indoors, that's what I was doing. They're pretty good subjects, but they sleep a lot, so it's not hard. And then we got to bird feeders. And this was in the end of February of this year. And feed them and they will come. So we had a lot of fun watching the birds. I was photographing from inside the kitchen, sometimes through 2 glass doors because I couldn't go out in the sunroom because it would scare them away. So these are some of the visitors that we had. So that's the end of this journey for now. And I'm going to stop the presentation. And if you have, if you have questions or feedback or comments, just let me know.
Janet, that was amazing. I
Thank you.
wanted many more of everything or longer time with them all because they're so beautiful.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I have a question right off the bat, which is, do you have, of all these things that you've done, do you have one that stands out the most for you in terms of style? Like I'm really drawn every time to black and white, or the boats just, I keep coming back to them, or is there one thing that is your favorite?
It's not that I have one favorite. I think at different moments in time, there were big ahas, like the clothespins with the flowers. I mean, that was a major like aha, you can figure out how to put something in front of the camera. And that was also with the black and white too, was that I didn't have to run around outside and try and find light in nature. So I like doing still life, but it's a different kind of challenge. I say I keep coming back to the boats because I seem to be forever in search of boatyards and boats. I can't see, that's been a project going since, oh God, 10 years, 11 years, and I can't seem to stop doing that. So I don't know at what point I'll say I'm done with boats. But each, and yeah, so I guess there were in each one of those, there was kind of a special moment, especially the two portfolios, the sticks and stones and paper, and the early light. I'd like to get back to both of those. So I didn't really answer your question, but there's different moments for each one that really stand out for me.
Right. Yeah, anybody who wants to just, unmute yourself and ask away. I saw a couple of things in the chat if that's not.
I'm looking at the chat to see if anybody had any questions.
Looks like people are just like, wow, this is incredible.
Because I couldn't hear anything and I couldn't see your faces. I didn't know if anything I said was funny. I didn't know if anything I said was interesting, but thank you.
Did you say anything? No, we're only kidding.
Everything was interesting.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Postcards, not postcards, what am I thinking? Note cards with your photographs.
Send requests to me about note cards, because I did some for open studios. I picked a couple of different things, and I don't tend to do them as a whole because I sell small photos. And so if I did note cards, people would just buy the note cards and put them in the frames. But I did do a series of small note cards. So if you have particular things you like, I'd like to know which things were appealing to you.
Okay, so you said you do sell small photos.
Yeah. Actually, if you go on my website, there are pictures for each portfolio. You'll see pictures of small framed photos. I did that for Open Studios last year when it went virtual, and I couldn't stand there and show people what I did. So I photographed the kinds of things I typically sold at Open Studios and put it on my website so people could see what things might look like. So yeah, so that's a good place to go to see what I do. Also, Britta, since you live in Atlanta, you can go to Linda's house and see what she has on the wall.
Right.
Janet, can you talk a bit about the lenses that you use? This is Sally. It's beautiful work, by the way. I really love what you do.
Sorry, Sally, what did you ask me?
Can you talk a bit about the lenses that you use? Are you using macro or close up?
It's interesting. I have had so many cameras over the years, and I do not have a macro lens, and I don't have any long lenses. So I'm not really a bird photographer. And when I went to a Wyoming workshop, I think I put Wyoming on the list. There were people in the workshop and they had these like gigantic lenses, and I thought I can barely carry around what I've got. So I nixed that. Right now, I am using a Lumix. I use 3 Lumix cameras, and 2 of them they have good zooms. They go out to about 300, or one goes to 500, but it's a fixed lens. So you don't take it off, and they use Leica lenses in the camera. So I use two of those, and then the third one actually is it's a mirrorless camera, but I only have a zoom lens, two zoom lenses. One's short and the other one's longer. But I found that if it's heavy, I'm not going to take it with me.
Mhm.
And the one Lumix camera I have with the 500mm zoom is my go-to for all the travel stuff that I do.
Thank you.
But basically, with all of these pictures, the camera I used was the one I had in my hand, and now I'm actually starting to use my iPhone, because I bought a new one, and the quality of the iPhone photography is pretty phenomenal now.
Mhm. Yeah.
So Allison had a question. She wants to talk about how you think about composition and which pictures you want to take. Do you know that in advance, especially with digital? That's, I'm adding this part. Or do you take 1,000,000 and then edit?
No, I think with the still life, I don't take 1,000,000. I really it's really about playing with whatever it is you're doing. So, I mean, I did take a lot of pictures of the stones and tried different compositions, but I think the still life does slow you down. It makes you more thoughtful, and also the light, since I'm using natural light, the light may come and go. And I found out, like with the paper sticks and stones, I like to photograph that on cloudy days, because I didn't want harsh shadows. So I was always happy when it looked like it was going to rain, because it meant I could go out in the sunroom and take pictures of paper sticks and stones. With the early light, I needed shadows. So that was one thing that controlled what I did. But I didn't have a preconceived idea, because the compositions in the still life come from playing with the materials that you have. When I go outside, I don't know how to explain what the sense of composition is, but when I do look through the camera, and it basically limits you from seeing your eye takes in 180 degrees, but through the camera, you move around looking until you see, you look at the edges, and you look for lines and composition that feel right to you. I can't explain exactly what that is, but I have a sense of it when I see it.
Janet, do you do all digital camera now, or do you still use your old cameras?
No, my old cameras are actually gone. I sold the last old camera. I traded in, I sold some of my old cameras to a friend whose daughter wanted to get into film photography. And the others I traded in to buy some new digital cameras. So I have not gone back to film. I don't know how, I wouldn't be able to do black and white, and the digitals, everything that was film would need to be digitized in order for me to use it now. So no, I'm all digital.
And you don't miss the film process?
What I miss about film are the cameras, because they're very straightforward and very simple. There are a few things you set, and I got very comfortable with those. So I miss that aspect of film photography. But with the digital, I feel like I'm still making friends with all of the cameras, because they have so many settings and so many possibilities. And they also dumb them down a lot by giving you choices that you really need to turn off, because if you have an idea of what you want to get in the camera recorded, sometimes the options that the digital camera gives you don't give you that control. So I'm still really learning digital photography, even though I've been doing it for a while.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Your photographs show a lot of imagination.
Hi, Janet.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah.
Hi, Rita.
I just moved one of the I loved when you were giving your presentation and I got to see my pictures that
Oh my God.
That looks like a landscape.
Thank you.
Yeah, but
I
it's a
thought
side
it
of the
was
boat.
the distance until you got up close. Yeah.
That was the photo of the little rowboat turned upside down on Plum Island.
That's
Yeah.
just
And I bought the set. I bought both of them, and but I just brought one upstairs just so you could see it. I have I keep there's another one downstairs, but anyway, I just couldn't resist, so you could have it in the background. You could see it. So
Oh my God, thank you. That actually was a photo that I had in a show at the Newton Library, and it was printed on canvas. So
right,
yeah.
yes,
Rita, you have both of them.
it really
and,
does look like a painting.
yes.
Yeah.
So I think I may do.
Yeah,
I
it's really cool.
Thank you. I may have more of those printed on canvas. I don't have a printer that can print on canvas, so
Yeah, it's great. It's a regular painting. You know, people are like, really, Rita, this is a photograph?
yeah. Yeah, thank you for showing that.
Yeah, welcome. Very, very nice. I'm enjoying the presentation very much, Janet.
Well, thank you.
Did too. Very interesting. It's like following your journey from one place to the other with the different interesting things that you do, from the clothespins to the boats to the sticks and stones. Very interesting.
Well, thank you. By the way, that's my aunt who's in St. Louis,
Hello.
Aunt Shirley.
Totally unbiased opinion.
Oh, Laurie is showing off. She has Vermont cows.
Oh, wait.
I was gonna say, can you see my cows?
Yes.
No.
They were, well, these are the cows that were in you had my
Oh, yeah,
cows
there they
in,
are.
yeah, there you go.
Nice.
You had my cows in your show.
I did.
You did.
They were very cooperative. The minute they saw us, they just walked over.
They thought you were going to feed them instead of take their picture.
I guess. I'm not
Probably
sure.
why.
Yeah.
Hey, Janet, is there any subject matter that you've always wanted to photograph but haven't yet?
Who's asking me that? Oh, Sandy.
Sandy.
I don't know. No, well, the one thing that I haven't photographed are people. My mother in the early days asked me if I knew any people because there were no people in my photographs. And I've never gotten comfortable photographing people, random people. I mean, travel photos, and also because I think I'm shy about photographing people without asking them. And then I don't like that process. So I guess if there's anything that I really would stretch myself to do would be to photograph people out in the world and just, or do more documentary, do something that's tells a story of some sort, but I haven't thought of what that story would be yet. So, I mean, some people go off and they find, I mean, there's so many things going on in the world right now. Well, I did do a little bit of that with, I worked at Right Lock Farm. I helped take care of the chickens. I was a chicken tender, and I did photograph at the farm for a year, but I never made it into a portfolio, but I really liked photographing the chickens.
And they're like little people. Some people who have chickens say they have very distinct personalities.
Yeah, they, I think they do. And it's funny, when I used to get to the farm, there were the chickens were free range chickens. They kept them in a closed area just that had a electric fence around them just to kind of keep them safe from things that might get them. But there were several chickens that did not like to be in that enclosure because they did not like the rooster. So there were three kind of buff colored light brown chickens. For some reason, I started calling them the three Sopranos, and they would greet me. I mean, I would walk up to the barn and there they were, and they knew that I would probably feed them something before I got to the rest of the chickens. And I always thought they were really funny. They were always perched in the oddest places, and they were always outside from the other chickens. So these chickens didn't have names, but they were on the farm just for the eggs. I collected the eggs and they sold the eggs at the store. Yeah, I guess I still want to do a portfolio of chicken feathers. I don't know if anybody would buy chicken feathers, but I'd like to try. It's a challenge because they don't stand still, they're chickens.
Right. Do you know Rosamund Purcell's work?
Yeah, I do. And
She does things that I think she's probably done chicken feathers. She's done some sort of feathers.
well, she has done amazing things. She has a studio, I want to say it's in Somerville.
Yeah,
I
it
think.
used to be.
Yeah, and I went to Open Studios there and I saw her studio there, and the shelves and shelves and boxes of stuff. I mean, most of the chickens that I saw that she photographed were dead. So she did dead birds and dead things. And I haven't really photographed, well, dead things. I don't think I have. But and Olivia Parker too, she once said that, you know, her house was just one giant collection, which in looking at her photography, you know that it is, because the odds and ends and things that she puts in the photographs are astounding. I mean, you know, just the collections of things. But I ought to look at Purcell's photos again because I haven't done that in a while.
Yeah.
But she did amazing still life photographs.
I think it'd be interesting for you to interview some of the captains of those boats that were all rusty and some of their stories of, like, I mean, they're so scoured and so rough, and
they've seen so much.
yeah, I think there'd be some really interesting stories. So you just run with that, okay, and let us know how that goes.
Well, guess who's going to be taking me around to all those boats?
Yeah, I know. Talk about being in boatyards. I've logged a lot of time in boatyards.
Yeah. Well, I the boat that I photographed the most was that big tugboat, and I did photograph the back of it to see the name of the boat, and I did wonder what happened to it because they were working on it for, oh man, it was in Belfast, Maine, maybe 4 or 5 years. I don't know if they ever fixed it, but I thought about trying to follow up and find out what happened to that boat. The other boats, I can't always, depending on whether they're in the water or in dry dock, sometimes I only get to see a very one piece of the boat, and I can't see the rest of it. But that one boat had me curious about what became of it.
Yeah. I have a question. If you know, and I bet you do, some of the old large format photographers that you were showing at the beginning, I guess Ansel Adams and maybe Elliott Porter and people like that. Do you have any idea how current digital resolution compares with the kind of resolution they got with their large format cameras?
At this point in time, my guess is that digital is probably pretty good, but in the early days it wasn't, especially, and it depends on how big you want to print the photo, because when I've been to exhibits with Ansel Adams and Edward Weston's photographs, and often the photographs are surprisingly, they're small because they're 8 by 10 because they printed right from the negatives. And the quality was astounding. I mean, black and white last a long time. Unlike color, although now we have inks that last longer. But when you're printing directly from the negative, you get just incredible quality. But when you start to enlarge that, that's when things get a little trickier. But now the digital files are very large, and it's fairly easy to get a really high quality file or print from a digital image that, you know, that's 10 or 15 megapixels. Although I see my friend Alice there, and she teaches photography, and she might be able to answer that better than I can, whether the digital is now equivalent to the old black and white.
Alice,
I put you on the spot. Sorry, Alice.
Sorry, I really don't know. I think it's getting better and better and better, but for a long time, black and white was much, much higher resolution than any digital print that you could make. But now cameras are getting so much more advanced to make the resolution higher. Yeah, so it's moving fast, as this technology has been over the past 30 years. Yeah.
What about the permanence of color photos now? You know, in
I'm
the
sorry,
olden days, there was no such thing as a permanent color photograph.
Wait, Shirley,
but always
could you,
paid.
Shirley, could you ask me that again?
I asked about the permanence of digital photographs now.
Well, depending on how they're printed, the permanence is pretty good. I mean, but they're still not good. It's not good to hang them, in sunlight, and they will fade. But if you remember the old Instamatic prints that you might have taken pictures on vacation, all of those fade over time. With the new inks, they say the permanence might be 100 years or more.
Wow.
But nobody really knows because we haven't been 100 years.
Yeah.
So when we all die and our photographs are lying around, somebody will have to tell us, or somebody will decide whether they lasted long enough. But for now, all the photographs that I'm taking and printing are going to outlive me. So that's the good news because nobody can complain.
So it's running on 8 o'clock. If anybody has a last question, we can take one more. So Rita, you have a question?
Yeah, Jen, I was just wondering, do you have any idea as we get vaccinated and, things seem to be getting better when you might be having any shows or things like that? Or I guess maybe your things are up places at libraries or something. I don't know.
The things I have, there are two places that sell my work. One of them is in Wellesley, a gift store called Clever Hand. And they have a steady stream of my small and mid-sized photos. And then there's a small store in Arlington called Greater Goods, and they sell small photos. I don't know, the next thing that would probably happen would be in the fall. I'm guessing it would be Arlington Open Studios. And I don't know if they're going to try and do a hybrid of in-person and online. And then I had two photo shows that were scheduled for the boatyard images, which have been pushed out into 2022. So one of them will be at Habitat in Belmont, and that will either be July or August, of 2022. And I haven't yet heard from the Lexington Library. It was supposed to be the same show, but again, all of that was canceled because of COVID. So those are the things right now. I mean, I do get photographs here and there into shows, but again, everything's been virtual right now. So as things open up, I will let people on my mailing list know if I've got stuff hanging on a wall somewhere. But thanks for checking.
Thanks. Yeah, I know. I went to your website, today, and so obviously you can order things there. Plus, hey, I got to come to your home and get mine personally, so that was great. So, thank you. It's great to see you and hear everything.
Well, thank you. Thank you for tuning in.
So Janet, you can also buy things just by going to the website and then contacting you.
Yes, there's a contact page on the website. And if you send me an email with telling me what you want, I'll just be back in touch with you and then we can talk. Over last Christmas, the Gallery Twist in Lexington, I got into their show Illuminations. And of course, things hadn't closed down yet. I don't think things had closed down, but we were wearing masks. Let's see, yeah, they had been. Okay, things were closed. Well, there, they did everything online. And there was one guy who loved the boat series and ended up buying 3 photos from Gallery Twist printed on canvas. So if I get into that show again, I will let you know.
Well, Janet, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for doing it and for having such an amazing eye and sense of design and execution. It's a privilege to get to see all this work and have you share that with us.
Well, thank you for inviting me, and thank you to everybody that came to visit and tuned in. I've never done anything like this before. So anyway, it's good to see all of you.